Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Interface. Today, we have an amazing guest. We have Dr. Nick Fine, somebody who I've personally followed for many years. I can't put a number on it, but for a very long time, I've seen his face and name and posts appear on my timeline across kind of LinkedIn. His talks are phenomenal. His knowledge and research is amazing. But without further ado, I'll let Nick introduce himself and we'll get into the discussion.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. That's a lovely intro. It's hard to introduce myself. I'm just a UX guy. I'm a UX practitioner with like 16 or 17 continuous years of practice. So anything that I say and do comes from that source of just a working guy, a working practitioner who's been working in UX for a long time. That's it in a nutshell. The only reason why I'm as noisy and loud on LinkedIn as I am is because I'm a very strong advocate for user-centric UX. And user-centric UX is what's going to save our industry and our jobs and our careers. But that's what we need to get back to. So I've had to become some kind of social media noise, influencer, whatever, to change the way the direction the industry is going, because it's been regressing. It's been going backwards for at least 7 or 8 years now. So we need to get back to building the right things, making money, being happy, being successful, but in the context of AI.
Cool, getting started with a bang. So I think we should probably double click on that point. So what would you say is currently wrong with the industry for you to feel this strongly that we need to maintain focus on user-centric UX?
So there's so many factors to this, and I won't go into a long answer. I'm going to try and keep this brief. But the long story short, and this is I'll call it a Dr. Nick hypothesis, right? There's this thing called social media ego, right? Because social media, people are growing up under the glaring lights of everybody looking at you and being very kind of transparent in your life. That's driven a very top-down mindset in the world, in society. It's about your personal brand. It's about me. It's about broadcasting. When you take that framing, that context, and you bring it into professional spheres, you look at design. It went from a UX design went to basically UX UI design, which is pure top-down visual design. Research has gone sort of become a marketing function kind of thing. It's all product management has become very top-down, right? We don't really do agile or waterfall or any kind of delivery stuff in many areas, and that's all become very top-down or waterfall. That's the problem, and I think the ego behind it is I know better, instead of kind of it should be both. I've got the vision and I've got the evidence, right? That's the problem. So that's where we're at right now. We are in a world of non-user-centric UX, non-user-centric product development, top-down everything. And unfortunately, you are seeing redundancies happening on massive scales because of it. I mean, it's one factor. It's not the only factor, but it's a big factor. And so I would encourage everybody listening. User centricity might not sound particularly sexy or exciting or novel, but it is what moves the needle. It's what works. It's what's going to keep you safe. And that's why I stick my neck out to say this stuff loudly and clearly. You have to involve users in the development of your products. Not discovery at the front, not something just before you release, constantly throughout the journey of you building a thing for the user.
I'm going completely off script now, but where did we go wrong?
Wow, that's a fiery, spicy question. I'll give you the short, spicy answer is leadership isn't leadership. Management, when I was growing up in this industry, I was sent on management leadership training courses because they said to me, when you're promoted to management, you need to learn how to manage people. Well, we don't do that anymore, and we haven't done it for a long time. So if you can consider that the internet, social media, AI is all producing misinformation and broadcasting misinformation or questionable information, there's no leadership filter to protect the local organization from these misinformation memes that bounce around Medium and LinkedIn and everywhere else. There are people on LinkedIn who have got hundreds of thousands of followers who say the wrong things. And this is why. So they said things like, UX is UX UI. Anybody can do it. And research is this market research form of just interviews and surveys. Completely missing the point. These aren't people who were successful UX people back in the day. They don't know what drives good product and good UX. But people like what they want to like instead of what they need to like, if you know what I mean. This is where we're at. So the long story short, and the takeaway on this point, Jay, is what I'm calling local definition. Okay. If you think about information as potentially like viruses and bacteria and bad things, as well as good things, but you have your organization, you need to protect it from bad information, these viruses, which you're going to get in. Somebody will come in like the flu, start talking garbage. Other people go, oh, we're really great, and follow you. And the next thing you know, you've got the equivalent of flat earth happening in your organization because people believe something that isn't true. The only way to get around that, in my humble opinion, is to set a definition, right? You say, at this company, XYZ Co., we believe that UX is this. Here's the definition of UX. Here's how we do it. Here's the tool stack we use. I don't think it's unreasonable in a world of AI misinformation and everything else to be onboarded to your new organization to say, this is what we believe. This is what the practice is. This is the tool set. This is how we work. But we don't do that. So what happens is everybody comes to the new gig with carrying the experience and processes and everything from their last gig. And then it becomes a complete bun fight. Oh, well, this is the way that works for me. This is the way that works for me. And then product management doesn't care about delivery anymore because that was project management. So product management isn't managing it, and it's become product UX building products. It's become one great big top-down negotiation of committees. And you wonder why people are being fired.
Yeah, I hear that, Nick. And I like the point there about the top-down and like how leadership's kind of, been failing over the years. And just to build on that, we're always I try and understand where it's gone wrong as well is just around the UX leadership, because I've seen a lot of different product leadership or just different people across the organization rising to those senior positions. But, I feel like maybe not as many UX leaders have been able to rise to the top of some of these senior organizations to kind of help drive that change. And it always made me wonder because, you said about the centricity and kind of knowing what we're doing. Do you feel like the UX leaders weren't strong enough, or do you think it's more a case of just not given the same opportunities as some other parts of the business to kind of drive change in an organization?
One of my biggest posts on LinkedIn, I think last year, was I put a pyramid up showing a creative director hiring kind of troubadour haircuts in their place, right? What I'm trying to say is that around 2015, 2016, there was the gold rush, right? Before then, people like me were very successful, high-profile, user-centric UX people. The design world were finally sick and tired of taking my Agile wireframes and being told to color them in. And they lost their minds because most of them were very high-end, elite designers from Falmouth and Camberwell and Royal College of Art and Chelsea, really good places. And then you get some non-designer science spod like me saying, here, color in my wireframes. And yeah, stuff happens. It's not. So they got fed up and they said, how come these geeks over there are doing all this design work? And why am I getting it at the end of the process? So design leaders, basically creative directors and design directors, all became UX leaders. But they did UX thinking that UX was a visual design thing. And there were so many of them and so few of us that we got steamrolled. I was shouting the whole time. You guys knew I was trying to stop this. I got into massive arguments with massive creative directors at big brands who told me I was wrong, and they're very clearly wrong. And what they've done is they've broken the UX function everywhere they've gone, because they've gone in, hired lots of designers, lots of UX UI, Figma jockeys, and this is where we're at today. And how do you even start to get a user-centric mindset into a very top-down world? The design world has always been top-down because that's the nature of the beast. UX has always been different in that it balances the two. And that was its uniqueness in the design world. That's what our contribution, that's our value. So that's the problem. So we need to try to get back to some form of evidence-based UX process.
How do you get back to that? Because if I look back, the emergence of all these agencies, right? Like all these massive design agencies came out, and it's all about like being at the beg and call of your client, right? So whatever your client wants, you make adjustments. It doesn't matter if you agree with the adjustments or whatever. You just keep iterating until you get what the client wants. And I feel like that mindset and that almost like a tradition has transcended across into business, into products and design. So therefore, even when UX was emerging and became a thing, you're still being led by people with that mindset who are used to dealing with agencies. And I just feel that it just hasn't stopped. And when I personally think about this problem, I kind of find it very difficult to come to an answer as to kind of how you solve it. So I'm wondering, like, if this is something obviously that you pondered, but are there any solutions that you see that we might be able to take?
The solution is easy, believe it or not, but there's too many levels to this that if I had a magic wand, I'd just get people to just listen to me and just do this and it will all turn out well. But unfortunately, we don't live in that kind of a world anymore. The simple answer is agility, right? Now, that doesn't sound sexy or new or cool, so call it whatever you want to call it. But an iterative cycle of agility is Agile is amazing, but it got completely broken in the same way that UX did and design did and everything else. It just got people redefine these days. The younger generations who are entering the market want to redefine the practice according to what they want it to be instead of what it actually is. And that's what I was talking about earlier about the leadership not defending about newcomers coming to the organization and polluting it. So, okay, the important thing that you and the audience all need to understand, if you don't already, is that Agile brings an iteration cycle naturally. And that cycle, it keeps you safe and keeps everybody safe. It's how you get research into a product or product and engineering team in a regular, standardized cadence, in a rhythm, so that every sprint, something is being tested, you're getting insight coming in. Every sprint. That might be every 2 weeks, every week, whatever your setup is. Now, research or user research is not an event. It's never an event. It's a journey. And the user centricity comes from the Agile cycle constantly throughout your working year. So throughout that year, whether the PM likes it or not, whether anyone on the team likes it or not, you're learning. You're being course corrected. You're being advised by data. Now, that informing by evidence is what is going to change everything, because there's too much box checking going on. People are doing a thing because they saw it on the social media. I've done it now. Well, no, you didn't. You might have done it, but you didn't do it well or correctly. That's where we're at. So that's what we really want to get back to. Now, the problem is product management, capital P, capital M, as a practice, does not see or does not have delivery as part of its definition. And if you look at Teresa Torres' book, she doesn't talk about any of this stuff. And this is the problem, because everybody is a Teresa Torres product manager, but we don't have any delivery. So when product managers replaced project managers about 6-7 years ago, not a single person in leadership anywhere noticed the lack of delivery. So this is why we're in a random world of waterfall, top-down, ego-driven crap and people are being made redundant because they can't generate value or build the right thing because everybody's guessing in committees. And I can't stop it. This is why I'm having to shout louder, because it's like with pure love and heart, like, you've got to stop doing this. Like, not you, like, one has to stop doing this.
Definitely.
We have to start. We can't be on a waterfall trajectory, because we know that doesn't work and the world changes too quickly. Agile is perfectly placed. The scientific method is what's going to do this. But if you want to look at the agility, is basically the scientific method. It's just baked in. You don't need to understand it. You just need to do it. But the other thing is that agile is actually a mindset more than it is a handful of rituals and ceremonies. And that's where lots of people go really wrong. Those ceremonies and rituals are there to kind of execute the mindset. But the mindset comes first, and it's about being lean, you know what I mean? Being quick, doing what you can, like achieving things at speed and not worrying about the small details so much. It's a brilliant way of thinking. It's a brilliant way of working, but we don't train it. We don't coach it. And it feels like it's a dead thing along with everything else. So
I feel like we need to get Teresa Torres on the show.
I want to go head to head with Teresa. I do.
Because this is literally like, her name's been brought up at least 5 times on the show, and her process. And funnily enough, like when I first came to Dubai and the company that I joined, they had just been coached personally by Teresa Torres and Marty Kagan in conjunction. And they followed both of their kind of methodologies to kind of produce product, etc. And that's what I was onboarded onto, and given the book and everything like this.
Can I just say something quickly?
Though? Definitely need to have a discussion with her.
I do, and I desperately do, but she won't, and she won't engage with me. And I've reached out directly in PMs, in threads. She doesn't want to. There's a massive problem with the quality of influencers out there. Okay, most of these people, Marty Kagan is a legend, but lots of these authors haven't been in practice for over a decade. And when they were in practice, it was for a very short period of time. Teresa Torres, I don't think she was a product manager for very long at all, if ever. She was a journalist. She's an author. These are ideas that she's created, but they're not off of the back of a long period of experience. And that's the problem, because she wrecked and got so many user researchers fired with this do your own research crap, which is totally irresponsible. Reinventing product management and binning delivery, or not considering delivery, is a big problem. So I don't think that this version of product management is any good. Well, let's get some real spice going then, right? Okay. Jay, you're going to love this. Moving forward into a world of vibe coding, which is becoming rapidly mature, do we need product managers anymore? Because I'm going to put a hypothesis out. This is real spice. I'd say product management has been a failed experiment, right? Before product, there was UX. We were the product managers. We were product long before product was a twinkling in anyone's eye. And believe it or not, we built much better products than we do today. Much more commercially successful, much more usable, better products. And that was without product management. So it's not like product management came along and said, hey, I can teach you how to build products. We were building products brilliantly. Then product management came along, or at least Teresa Torres' style of product management, and literally broke everything. Yet we're still hanging on to this thing that doesn't work. This is my problem with it. I'm happy to evolve. I'm happy to learn. But that's a backward step. It's a very backward step, and no one is stopping it. So let's talk about the leadership thing at the outset. Why aren't they stopping it? Because they don't know any different. Otherwise, they would stop it, because no one would have this happening on their watch and be okay with it. This is the problem. Most of the people that I see, this is a very unpopular thing to say, are like the ducks, or whatever you say. You know, they're serene and calm on the surface, and underneath the surface, their legs are going like crazy, trying to stay afloat and move. And that's the way of the world. It's all front. People aren't delivering on their promises. And now, 4 or 5 years in, they're being made redundant because they've had the money, they've had the time, and they are not moving the needle. It's clear out time. I'm sorry to say this, it's horrible, but it's not okay.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's not okay. And the part around the failed experiment and AI coming in, I want to come back to that, Nick, because you made some really good points there. And because even when we talk about the agile process, it's only going to get worse, right? Because now that we've got AI coming in and people are almost redefining that process now altogether, right? So we're not even following agile nowadays. We're doing things completely different now with AI coming in. Where do you see this going now, Nick, in terms of AI, the different roles in the process, and this constant battle that we're seeing now? There's a bit of a battle happening, like you said.
Yes.
Because the product manager is saying the same thing. Do we need design anymore? Because we can, vibe design, we can vibe code. So what do we see? Where do you see it going, Nick, in your personal opinion?
So, yeah, this is great. That's the actual best question. Spot on, Warren. Where this goes, okay, we have to lean into all this stuff we've talked about, basically. We're not going to change it, right? So vibe coding, whatever you want to call that, has changed the game fundamentally. Okay, yes, we know it's going to change, like AI is going to kill practices, but the vibe coding and product development is the game changer, right? Product teams won't look like product teams as much as they have done, right? Product team being product manager, research, design, maybe content, maybe service, you know what I mean? That sort of thing. Okay, I'm a researcher, so I'm very biased in that some levels of research will not be done well by AI at all. Okay, but whether the audience cares or not is up for grabs. The team of one product development is coming. Whether we like it or not, it's coming. I spent Sunday building an app in an ecosystem that I do not have any knowledge of, to see if it could be done. Okay, because the question that you just asked, Warren, is so sharp, it's so on the money. Because the real question is in the next 2 years, who's building product? Because why would you pay a team of 5 to 6 people, I don't know, £500,000 or whatever you're going to pay that team, when one person can do that job and arguably produce a better outcome in a fraction of the time without the resources and costs? Yes. So, who is that person? That's the question to ask. Now, product management has shown consistently it doesn't know how to build products. It doesn't know how to build the right product because it doesn't have a process or anything. So when you get back to a team of one, that team of one should probably be somebody a bit like me, a slightly older Gen X designer person, ex-UX person, because we know how to build products. We were the product builders before product. So what would make sense to me if I was king of the world for the next few years, we must restart the knowledge transfer from Gen X to millennials to Gen Z. At the moment, it probably feels more like, because the millennials are in the leadership positions, that we need to train Gen Z from X to Gen Z. That's why they need to learn from us before we leave the industry in the next 10 years, when we retire, die, etc. Right? We have to teach them how to build the right thing. And then we will be gone. But we need to pass that torch, that baton, to the younger generations so that they can be team of one and build the right thing. But they don't have any principles or kind of first principles to keep them safe. There's no user centricity. There's no understanding of how this works. There's no psychology involved. There's nothing. It's just, what do I think you need? And I'm going to make it for you. You're just going to build the wrong thing at speed with AI. Do you see where we're at? So This is the problem. I need to communicate with an entire generation who doesn't want to hear from me because they think I'm some kind of old boomer.
I hear it, Nick, and that's my worry, right? My worry, just right on that point you mentioned there, my worry is the current generation are lacking the basic design thinking, right? And when we're talking about AI inputs, it's junk in, junk out, right? So it's all about knowing the process and how to prompt the right things, right? Like which research methodologies are used for this particular product, or can you synthesize this insight that I've got from my research using X, Y, and Z, right? And that's my worry, is how are we training the next set of UX researchers, UX designers out there? Who's doing that now? Because like you said, there's a lot of people that don't have any skin in the game anymore, or they're out of the game, right? All the current professors in the universities and teaching HCI, they're no longer really in the day-to-day anymore, right? So how are we crafting the next gen of proper or true UX designers?
Well, okay, we lost that knowledge transfer. When I joined the industry as a UXer, and when I worked in design agencies like Publicis and SAS and MSL, there's a design experience ladder which was created by the design profession, where you go from intern to junior to midweight to senior to design director, creative director, executive creative director. That's the ladder. And it doesn't matter. I learned that there were high-end, super-duper, like elite designers coming out of the Royal College of Art, or Falmouth, and doing a 2-year internship. And I'm like, wait, I thought these guys were rock stars. I thought they'd come out, become a senior. And they're like, no, it doesn't work that way. Because you come out of university or art school with a framework, but there's no experience on it. So you started as an intern to get the actual on-the-job experience, and you get mentored by somebody higher up than you, and they carry you up the ladder. And that has always been the way in design since design began, or at least they invented that. And so UX was very much the same. We used to have juniors and midweights. And when you were a junior, you could do bad work and be mentored on it by a senior or the lead. And as a midweight, you had no senior pressure, but you weren't a clueless junior, and you spent 2 or 3 years hard learning in the midweight area. Now, that knowledge transfer is gone because those design directors and creative directors who are now UX directors hire in designers as their leads. And they can't mentor juniors. A whole bunch of millennial leadership are hiring in people worse than them, not better than them. People like me are completely excluded. Gen X are excluded as ageist discrimination because we know too much and we will point these things out. And leaders who are bullshit their way in don't want that. They have to maintain optics because of social media ego. So there's no knowledge transfer and they're all being made redundant. So they'd rather be made redundant with this strategy than open up and win and save themselves and learn. This is the problem. So vibe coding is going to come along and just cut all that garbage out. Do you see? It leans right into the organization who is saying, where's the productivity? Where's my ROI? And these guys are making excuses and pointing the fingers. Until now, you've not had any chance to get rid of them. Now you can just get rid of them. Do you see? Because they're not generating value. They're just a massive cost. I'm all down with being, superseded, right? With younger generations doing better work, being sharper and faster, better. Great. That's historically happened since the beginning of time. But what you can't do is supersede goodness with crap or do worse. It's like, shut up, put up or shut up. And people like me can, and they can't. So we're excluded, and they're playing the optics game. Welcome to 2025.
Yeah, this reminds me of actually when I was working at a startup long ago, probably like 11, 12 years ago now. And I came in as like a mid designer. But everyone in leadership, it was probably, kind of in their 30s, early 30s. And then my UX leader, so we were a UX team of 2. He hired in somebody else at the same time, and he was twice my age. So I was like early 20s. This guy was like approaching 50. And he used to call out everything. Like in terms of processes. Like it was a bit of a pain for the business, and you could see him irritating everybody, like from
Yeah.
products to
Yeah.
the UI visual team to the engineers. But he was right. He was actually right. Like everything he was saying was right. We're still good friends to this day, and I can learn lots from him. And I feel like I think that's the trick that a lot of companies are missing, is that hiring in more kind of experienced people. It doesn't necessarily mean that Gen X or boomers necessarily want to or should be in the leadership positions, but even just being on the ground, like doing the work and kind of providing that kind of direction and lending that experience can provide a ton of value to the business. And I think that's what we're missing out on. Like we're hiring younger, somewhat cheaper labor, looking at the bottom line and not really thinking about the long term and how we can actually develop our processes, which is what this experience would actually bring us.
Yeah. One of my colleagues reminded me last week, Steve Jobs has got this really famous quote about A players hiring A players, right? And that's great. But not everybody hires A players. They hire B players. And B players hire C players and D players. And that's exactly what we're seeing in the industry today. You're seeing B players who have bullshit their way into an A player position, hiring in C players to defend their empire. And then after 3, 4, 5 years, that entire empire is being cut out and thrown away. It's happening everywhere, but just nobody wants to attribute it or call it out. But I'm ready to do so because I've got nothing left to lose. Right? None of us have. This is my career at stake. I've worked for 15 hard, long years making sacrifices as a practitioner. I want to build good products, and I want the recognition, and I want success. I want financial success. And none of that can happen when people are sitting in the chairs that they are, keeping people like me and the experience away from the product team.
If we truly believe that this product team of one is going to come into fruition in a near future, there might be I'm just wondering who that benefits. Like, does that benefit the experienced designers? And if so, then what happens to the upcoming designers? The ones who are, kind of starting on their journey. What do they do?
You know what I say is, it probably won't be a team of one. I think that's an extreme example, probably for startups and certain more like edge cases, right? I don't think that will be the industry. I don't think the industry can tolerate team of one in a general way, but it might be a team of, let's say, 2 or 3, right? A reduced product team. It makes absolute sense to have a researcher and a designer in separate roles, vibe coding the same solution, if you know what I mean, right? Because doing these things does take additional work, and it does take time, and there's logical headspace and expertise, and there's stuff. So as tools for practitioners, yeah, it's going to accelerate, but we just don't need that wide horizon team. Do you know what I mean? That full capability team that we used to have. So back to your question, Jay, about what is the young designer going to do? The young designer is going to, well, this can go one of 2 ways, really. Either there's no future for any juniors, which I don't want to believe. I really don't, because a junior doesn't bring anything to the table these days in the new world, right? In the old world, they were cheap and malleable, and they did the work that nobody else wanted to, and they learned and cut their teeth. But that's not relevant in a new world of AI. So they don't really bring any value because they can't do that work, and they're not a safe pair of hands. But we're going to need them to learn the art and science of vibe coding, right? Or what's good, because what good looks like and the human in the AI loop is the critical point, right? So how do you teach somebody who doesn't know what good looks like to what good looks like? Do you know what I'm saying? That's the really important part. So I want to believe, and I'd love there to be lots more of the old school shadowing and people present. It's really, okay. One thing, Jay and Warren, that we should mention just for the record is that the pandemic and not working from office has had a massive impact. And it's not the only reason, but they're not in the environments of learning anymore. It's not like I'm sitting on a bank of desks and I can just shout over to Bob, hey, how do I do that thing in Azure? Or Do you know what I'm saying? Or the passive learning of just hearing, or the water cooler chats. All of that stuff is gone because we're all sitting in our home offices doing stuff. So that's definitely a big deal. But we need to find a way. Maybe it's hybrid working, more time in the office, more, 2 days in the office where people are actually exposed to learning. But that knowledge transfer needs leadership change, or at least leadership style change. It needs the ageist stuff to go away. Like, we need to respect the experience, or the hard-earned experience, of people like me. We're not horrible people, and we might point things out that you don't want to hear, but it's for everyone's benefit. And one of the things about being a UXer has always been, we're the messengers. And I'm the bearer of bad news a lot of times, because I'm the one at the cold front. I'm the one talking to the people. I'm the one observing their behaviors. I'm the one listening to their pains. Right? So when I'm the one trying to show the organization what the way of the world actually is, and it's different from what they think it is, there's tension. That stuff happens. That's part of the gig.
I also look at how juniors are coming into the market today. I look at the likes of boot camps. There's a big trend of that at the moment. Do you think that will continue, or do you think that will be a way that, because obviously the curriculum will have to evolve, right? It will have to evolve into being able to execute vibe code, all these kind of things, right? Do you think that is a way that will continue to kind of drive new people into the industry and kind of bring juniors into the market? And it'd be good to just hear your take anywhere around boot camps.
Okay, so let's take boot camps to begin with. I think they've phased out a lot. They were massively popular 5 years ago. There were places like Red and Flatiron and General Assembly and lots of those sorts of things. People were then hiding General Assembly off of their CVs because it was like really stigmatized. All of those boot camps, all of those mentors, all of those transformation programs, everything, not a single one of them mentioned user centricity once. And that's a massive red flag and a big tell that these are people who are bullshitting and not actual UX people teaching real UX. They're teaching the UX that they thought people wanted to. They taught UX UI. And so these boot camps, all they did was boot camp more low-end interaction design masquerading as UX at great expense. And people all got ripped off. Lots of people made lots of money, and the industry is where we're at. And everybody knows it, but no one can talk about it because they all got suckered by it. And I was standing there screaming, telling everybody, don't do that, but no one wanted to hear me. So that was the problem with boot camps. I don't think they're really a thing, but I don't think there's no training. And I get the biggest question that I get asked daily on LinkedIn is, will you teach me? Will you mentor me? Where can I get good training? Where's good research? All of that good stuff. And it's the same answer that I've been saying for 15 years on LinkedIn, or 20 years on LinkedIn. UX is an experiential practice, right? You learn it by doing it. You learn it by making mistakes and having your mentor help you with that. And that mentor is not somebody on LinkedIn. I mean, somebody on your team, your lead. Now that's all gone. Leads don't lead. They can't lead. And this is a problem. So I don't know what I really don't know. Let me, Warren, people who want to build products moving forwards, okay, historically, you joined a product team. You became a designer, a researcher, whatever. You wanted to build cool products. Now vibe coding's here. Anybody can do it. Why does that individual need to join an organization and build a product using their engineering and product teams? I can just buy a bunch of tokens and sit down and vibe code. Do you see? So the landscape for the next 5 to 10 years is absolutely going to change in some way. I don't know what, because the talent, the raw talent, the young people entering the industry may not need to enter the industry. The industry becomes incredibly entrepreneurial. Everybody's a garage developer, right? And it becomes a numbers game.
It
That's
reminds,
really possible.
Yeah, it reminds me a bit about, I don't think they're still operating this way, but booking.com around 6 or 7 years ago, the way they used to operate was they had UX designers, but they were essentially UX developers. So essentially everyone on that team was running A/B tests. So they had to know how to look at the data, do the testing, do the build, and then they'd push it live. So that's how booking.com had, 100 experiments per day running, right, across their different ecosystem. I wonder if we're moving into a similar place now. I think that's, when you talk about those individual people, Nick, I wonder if that could be the future of it, where you've just got people being able to design, test, do everything themselves, all working across the entire ecosystem of different products and services, not having to answer necessarily to anyone, but just show the results,
Yeah. So working as a team of one or team of two, I've been vibe coding hard for the past, 3 months, learning vertically. Building products in this way is a very artistic, crafty kind of a way to do things, because you move. I'm going to tell you a great story. Last weekend, I was going to build I built an app for one of the teams at work. On Saturday, I woke up, drank my coffee, got straight into it with Cursor, and I was going at blazing speed. And by 3:00 in the afternoon, I had the sexiest looking app you can imagine, right? Glass morphism, particle effects. It was flipping amazing, right? Half of it was done in CSS. It was just very, very cool. Really intelligent, very cool stuff. I went to bed about 3:00 in the morning, thinking I've built the greatest thing ever. Look how freaking amazing I am. Sunday morning comes and I wake up, I drink my coffee, go to start it again. And I'm going through the local host. I'm just user testing it, having a go at it. And it's absolute garbage, right? The UX is, I don't want to swear, it's really bad, really bad. And I, through my eagerness, went from industry senior to absolute junior in one day. Every single thing that I know about UX and building product, I ignored because I was wooed by the ease and speed and brilliance of the AI. And I became like a Figma UX UI guy. And I built this good looking piece of garbage. Sunday morning, I woke up, started again. I literally started with a fresh folder, completely fresh Cursor, and started again where I should have done on Saturday morning. I started off with my IA. I started in wireframes. I built out a basic journey of the core golden journey. I did the ground zero things that we mentor our mentees to do. And I ignored it all. And it was a really good slap in the face reminder that UX with AI is still UX. Do you see what I mean? Just because it's easy and fast, you'll just build the wrong thing at speed and at great cost if you don't know what you're doing. So we need to teach people. We have to be able to expose younger folks to that craft of iteration, of massaging, of I need to do a little bit here, I need to do a little bit here, and kind of building this thing up, right? It isn't a linear process. Do you know what I mean? It really isn't. It's not a waterfall process. It does go all over the place. You do learn things and you change and you adapt. So that's why agility, user centricity are really important things for the vibe coding future. Do you see what I mean? It keeps the individual safe. It keeps the product safe. But what we need to get away from, just to put kind of underline on that, get out of your own head, right? I know the internet, the social media, everybody is telling you you are the greatest thing since sliced bread. And you are, but you need to validate that with the people you're building it for. That's ultimately the bottom line. And if you can check it with people and they can use or understand what you're trying to build, then great, you carry on. But if they don't, or you haven't, then it's purely your idea. It's purely top-down thinking, and it comes at massive risk.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're at, is back to basics in a simple way.
I kind of agree as well in terms of I'm a bit skeptical about using AI or kind of vibe coding to like build entire products and journeys. I think they're good for like validating like a concept. So like if you've got this idea that you've been pondering for years, and now this is giving you access to something which will allow you to visually communicate what that idea is. I think that's amazing. What I found really useful for it is what you just mentioned about, the IA and like the best practices. I feel like that grounds you as a designer, right? That kind of keeps you anchored into that problem space, that you're making sure you're solving the right thing. And then you create something and it's structurally sound, etc. But where I'm finding AI to be really useful is kind of just giving you that level of polish to the experience, right? So when you start going into like the motion on transitions and the micro interactions, like how can you elevate the experience like slightly? And this is like once you're kind of way ahead with everything else. That's where I'm kind of finding that being a really key differentiator, because like prototyping all that stuff in Azure or Figma or whatever tool you use can take ages. But using something like Cursor, and it's connected to your design system and stuff, like it's amazing. Like you get it done in a matter of like seconds and minutes. So I'm liking it from kind of that perspective. But I do agree that people who are using it for the entire process, they're probably fundamentally kind of missing a lot of steps, which can be dangerous. I do also think that going back to a previous point that we were talking about around not needing product managers and product teams building wrong things. Now, my mind was processing as we were discussing, and I kind of feel like when I actually think about it, I actually feel like it's I think people are fearful, like more like now more than ever. Like if you look at the amount of layoffs that happen, like in masses, like tens and tens of thousands of people getting laid off for no reason whatsoever, that people don't even want to be laid. People don't want to give anyone a reason to lay them off, right? So therefore, we've become a set of, and not just design, but I would say engineering and product, most definitely, just a set of agreeable people where, the top-down leadership is saying we must do it like this, and everyone just nods their heads out of fear of reprisals or kind of getting some sort of discipline or ultimately fired. I think we need to fix that. I don't know what the answer is.
I do.
But I think that needs to get fixed so that teams actually feel confident enough to be able to speak up, like you said. Because if they don't feel confident, then we're just going to end up in this cycle of just producing crap, ultimately.
So here's the problem. Return on investment is kryptonite for most people. I get in big trouble, hated every time I mention it. Now, what you can't do is keep giving product managers money and they blow it and then come back and ask for more money with no idea about that money didn't grow. You didn't invest it. You just spent it. That's not what product management should be about, right? In order to improve things, you need to understand, you need a feedback cycle. You need to some kind of metric that says you're doing the right thing or not. Well, ROI should be that, because then I know that the decisions that I'm making end up in a positive ROI. And that's how I learn and become a better PM or a better practitioner. What it can't be is here's more money, you go blow it. Oh, well, I'll make excuses, point the finger, and then here's more money. You don't learn. You don't learn what works. You don't attribute positive ROI with my good decision making. That's the problem. Everyone lives in fear. I live in fear. We all live in fear. Listen, anyone who's my age lives in fear that we've worked our entire careers and we won't get another job because of the ageist thing. And that's fact. Right? Yet we're watching people who are doing our jobs badly and being fired. So this is the problem. So we've got to sit here and watch this car crash happen, knowing exactly what to do about it, but powerless to stop it. So if you tell me that the future has lots of value for UX people like me, great. Because we've got families to support. We've got dependents. right? I'm somebody's dad, right? You can't just say, sorry, that's the end of your career at the peak of my powers. Either do better than me and be better than me, but don't reject me and do worse. And that's the problem right now. We can't liberate talent and experience.
My worry, Nick, is when the car does eventually crash, will people know what the right decision is to fix it? Do you know what I mean? Like, will they know what needs to be done? Because I think in our minds, yeah, like what you're saying, I totally agree with. But do we think that the senior leaders in the organizations will realize, you know what, yeah, I am actually kind of overspending on certain parts of my business here. I should probably rethink and make some adjustments here to kind of give more of a platform to the UX people in my team or developers, whoever you want to say is going to take it forward. I'm not 100% confident in leadership to make the right decision. Do you know what I mean?
This leadership, yes.
Yes.
And that's the point, right? This leadership have probably had 5 years to make these changes, and they haven't. And I am a strong believer of, if people know a thing, then they would have done a thing, right? So that's like saying all the trainers and mentees and mentors and boot camps, if they knew about user centricity, they would have taught it. If leaders knew about user-centric UX, they would have managed and hired for it. But they've talked one talk and not delivered on it. Do you see what I mean? And they've talked the talk, not walked the walk. And they're being fired for it because there's a massive delta between the expectation that they set and what they've delivered after many years and lots of money. And that's not unrealistic. That's just real. So either the C-level or the leaders above them have just, you've got to stop giving these people money. You need to replace your leadership teams. Do you see what I'm saying? Because they're self-serving. They're not serving the organization. They're not serving the future of the organization by recruiting healthy diversity of experience. They're just controlling the narrative and building crap. This is where we're at today. And this is why I'm unpopular, because I'm not prepared to sit and take this quietly. I'm going to say it intelligently and politely, but I'm going to say it.
No, I think it's spot on, Nick, and it has to be said. And I think that's why I've always enjoyed a lot of your content, right? Because always sparks that kind of level of thinking, I think, and it kind of makes you think, yeah, we need to do something about this, Look, Nick, I wanted to change course slightly, just a bit more into user research, specifically, because, what I'm definitely seeing now across teams that I work with, I'm not going to mention too much about it, but definitely across teams that I work with, the level of research is definitely going down a little bit. And when I say level, I mean the amount of research that we're doing. And that a lot of that comes down to speed, because we're trying to move at a faster pace, and I think teams aren't willing to put the time in to do proper research with customers, whether it's like interviews, whether it's waiting for surveys to complete and so on.
Yeah. Proper. I want to pick you up on that word proper research, because that's the word, man. What people consider proper research and what I consider proper research are like, they couldn't be further apart, right? The point is that proper implies this thorough, slow, fat, you know what I mean, non-responsive version, and that's not right. My version of proper research is something that's appropriate to the product team, something that's fast. I don't want to say lean, because that's a bad word these days, but you understand what I mean by it, right? It's agile research. User research is meant to be a form of design research or product research at worst, but design research. Our primary client is our design partner, the designer on the product team. That's who we effectively work with and for, not the product manager, the designer. That's our partnership. It's like Starsky and Hutch, or like, you know what I mean? It's a sorry, I'm showing my age there. It's a partnership. What's happened is that user research went from this design supporting informing role to this market research role, or this event driven role, to do this discovery thing. It's all about generative discovery. And the whole world, I had UXs like, well, what's his name again? Telling me I'm so wrong because it's all about discovery moving forwards. And I was fought hard. It's no, that's not what made me successful. That's not what made UX successful. Evaluative user testing, behavioral user testing, watching somebody using the thing that you've built, that's design research. Not tell me, what do you need? Give me what do you want me to build, with a microphone, or fill in these surveys and polls. Those are very secondary tools that you use very infrequently or on demand, right? There are times when you need to interview for sure. But I spent the first 5 years of my career being a very successful UX architect or consultant in UX labs, watching people using my Agile prototypes. In today's money, that's using my vibe coded prototype or my Figma Make or Lovable prototype. And that's what it's about. No machine can do that and can do it well and won't do it well anytime soon. That's the human bit. So we need to get back to a form of research which is efficient and valuable and actually contributes to the product's success, instead of this thing that product managers call for to find out, how are people using my product? Oh, my ex-colleague Mario, he called it reverse discovery. And I think it's brilliant, right? You make a thing, you release it to the world, but because you've done no research, you've got no idea what's happening in your metrics, in your analytics. So you'd run this reverse discovery to find out who's using my product and why. What's the value they find in it? What need is it meeting? You should never have to do that once it's in the market. That's crazy. So, do you understand what I'm saying, Warren? Research needs to become a valuable thing and needs to be smaller, more valuable, not fat and slow.
How do we make it more valuable? I agree with you, like 100%. Like I'm of the onus. I take the onus of making sure that we see the product being tested, we observe how customers are actually playing with the prototypes and interacting and seeing where they get stuck and how they get stuck and all this kind of stuff. And I think that's incredibly valuable. But I can point to many situations where we've done studies, and they say test with 5 people and that's enough to get 80%, right? Just to make sure that, where we go beyond that, right? So you go beyond the 5, maybe it's 15. In some cases, we've tested and observed 80 people using a product, presented all these findings back, and still the top person would be like, yeah, I don't believe it. They don't know what they want. How can the industry, how can us as designers, researchers convince these people with the powers that what we're actually showing and presenting to them is the truth?
Yep. So if you're doing this kind of fat, slow research and you turn up with a PowerPoint that's all words and bullshit, and you've got a thick ream of paper, and you're going to say, this is what the evidence says to your higher up. Yeah. And they go, I don't believe it. Yeah, fine. I would agree. I would understand. Right. You're doing the right thing, but in the wrong way. What you need to do is to create a show reel of 2 minutes maximum with the talking heads or the person going, where's the call to action, or whatever the higher up really thought was going to happen. You have to show, not tell. And you have to do it because you've got about that much attention span of the person. And that much of the attention span is the getting it bit. So you have to spoon feed it cleanly. And that's usually through showing, not telling. So most people don't know how to present their research. They don't know how to whittle it down to the actual truth. So let me give the best advice I'm going to give your audience that I can give anybody. Jay, you asked, how do you reinstate value in user research? The way to reinstate value in user research is to reduce everything to user needs. What that means in reality, user needs are the currency or the unit of building products. Okay, they're the bricks. Oh, everything that the research and product team should be doing should be focused around finding those user needs and solving those user needs. That's a very simple Now, a persona, let's talk about personas for a sec. Persona is usually like an A4 page of stuff, right? The way I use personae is to store my user needs. Now, my user need has got a standard syntax. As a role, so as a user researcher, I need to do a thing so that I can achieve a thing. So as a user researcher, I need to recruit participants so that I can find out about stuff, right? That's a standard syntax. It's a standard thing. Those standard things line up in your persona. Now, you get micro needs. Where's the call to action? And macro needs. I need to recruit people, right? And everything in between. And you can put all of this into a very portable, transferable document called a persona, which I can give to my researcher. Or I can just say, hey man, the user need is the micro need is the CTA is not visible. So you've got to put in your scan line and change the color and size, etc. Right? These are things that a designer can use. If you give them that fat tome of garbage, they've got to pick through it, and it's garbage. Having everything focused down to a user need is clear. There's no discussion. There's no messing around. It's there. You can tick them off. You've done them. You can store them. You can share them. Other people can learn from them. That's how you make it valuable again.
How do you know if you captured the right user needs?
Because they come up again. Okay, so there's a plateau. If you think of it like a graph, we'll do it that way, right? You're going to start learning insights, right? But if those insights are solid and valid, you're going to start replicating them. And after 10, 15, 20 people, you're going to start not learning anything new. You're just going to get a lot of repetition of stuff you already know, which is great, but you don't want to waste participants at that point. So the point is you've got it. And it's that part, that plateau effect is when you know you're doing the right thing and you're pretty much that you're getting there. Few more, yes. I'm not going to, everybody's telling me they want it read. Great, let's stop. I don't need to stop. Now, there are some nuances around that, and there's geographics and stuff, but generally speaking, plateauing is what you're looking for. When you're not learning anything new, then you've got the right user need and you've got it kind of confirmed.
Yeah. I think another term is saturation, right? You reach a level of saturation and then you no longer need more participants. You know, this comes back to that point there, Nick, which I think a lot of designers always struggle with, because when you work with stakeholders, they say, oh, well, you only spoke to, 10 people. How can we be sure that the insight is actually valuable, right? Well, I'd love to take your opinion, Nick, on just how you kind of deal with stakeholders, those kind of things, because this is what you're mentioning there, right? You're talking about convincing people, talking about not having all that evidence, having all that evidence and knowing how to sell it.
This is definitely about cultural shifts and immaturity or maturity shifts, right? So when you get a CMO that goes, I'm used to seeing 2,000 participants or 200, like a much, much bigger number. Okay, this is why the agility that I was talking about and the frequency of user research insight is so critically important. I call it cascading sampling, but you can call it just kind of summative or aggregate or whatever. If you do that 5 people in 1 week, which I think is not enough, right? But if you're doing 5 people one sprint, 5 people the next sprint, 5 people the following sprint, you are, let's say just take a 1 month. Some people will in that 1 month will do 20 people in 1 day or 2 days, right? Which is garbage. It's not good. That's waiting for the bus to come. But if you're doing 5 people every week, you're still doing 20 people in the same month, but you've got a regular cadence through the weeks, right? You can also pivot and change if you're starting to learn things. So it's a much better cultural shift to have that research insight coming in regularly, because the higher ups and the culture starts to understand that we're learning as a journey, not did you get it? One thing aside to add on that, the reason why you get depth interviews of an hour, 2 hours long is because these are event-based research, which means everybody and their auntie will come along and say, oh, Nick, just find this out for me too. And they put that in and they put that in. Next thing you know, you've got an entire committee just prodding at you to get this epic script together or discussion guide or whatever it is. And that's rubbish. If it happens regularly next week, it's no big deal. I'll just add it to next week's script. We'll find out. Finally, people are really stigmatized by these depth interviews and market research style stuff. If you respect their time and do 15 minutes of observational stuff, they'll come back to you easily, no problems. So can you see how all these things work together to get you regular, valid insight instead of irregular, chunky, too late insight, which doesn't help anybody? I went a bit all over the place, but do you get what I'm trying to get across?
Yeah.
Simple user research regularly converts upstairs. It keeps everybody honest. It moves the kind of cultural maturity needle. So they are only panicking upstairs because they want to know and they've got their own targets to hit. So if you can keep them cool with constant, easy to consume insight, you're going to win. That's where I win. I don't put too much effort on them. I'm not throwing them a book. I'm giving them what they need to know regularly. And then they step back and they trust you and everything's good. That's where we want to get back to.
And this is what I meant when I said proper research, right, Nick? This is like the authentic stuff that we're talking about that we need to get back to. But I'd love to also take your opinion on the future of research now. Like where do we see it going in the future? Because, we hear all this talk about synthetic personas. You hear all this talk about, loading up your AI with feedback from the past from users that then people can prompt and ask questions about. Where do you see the future kind of going?
I'll be brutal with you guys. That picture has been closing down rapidly. And I want to believe that there's a future for me in research. And there is, but it's like I say, it's closing down at speed. What is the future of research? I did some testing this weekend using not a synthetic user because I fully don't agree with that, but asking an LLM to test some UX of an app that I'd built. I've been using anti-gravity to try, because it's so great with the, moving the stuff around on the screen and the agentic part, to try to kind of fake out some user stuff. Okay, it doesn't do it well, but what I'm trying to say is that the future of user research, a lot of it is going to become AI driven. It will replace the human stuff. And I don't like saying that out loud because I don't want that to happen, but that's what's going to happen. Okay, because the machine can do deep research really well. The discovery stuff can be really excellent. But AI is only good at regurgitating stuff that the world knows, or that's logged somewhere or written somewhere. Now, an awful lot of what I and we do isn't written down anywhere, right? Identifying product opportunities, pain points, needs, the non-verbal behavior, non-verbal communication. There's so much to it that there is a place for the researcher moving forwards, but it isn't the place that it has been. Okay. It's more than likely that research will become, the researcher like me at best will be a psychologist understanding the human at the other side. But I don't think that the world will care so much. I think the AI stuff will be good enough. And that's the bit that makes me really uncomfortable. And that's the real truth here, is that, let's say 5 years' time, can't really see there being many researchers or designers for that matter, because we're both in the same boat. Let's be completely honest. Arguably, design is in bigger trouble than research because it can be done so fast and there is no real human element there. So it's all really messy. And this is why, again, I've been experimenting on the weekends like I did this weekend to find out who should be the product builder moving forwards. It's a big question. Is it us using tools? Is it teams of 2 doing the work of 5? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. And I don't know. I I don't think there is a proper answer to that one. I think it's horses for courses, or whatever you'd call that, whatever's appropriate in your local organization. But it's definitely a lot less than what we have had. That's for sure. Like the committee-driven thing, AI is going to kill that. It's scary, man. Like never in history have people's careers come to an end before they've retired. Do you see what I mean? And that's where it's happening across the board. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I think for me and the researcher trajectory, our trajectory is about user testing. I really do, because I pick up. I'm finely tuned to pick up user needs and pain points, and those user needs and pain points are what build the right thing. So I'm not sure that AI is going to replace that anytime soon, or that any product manager pretending to be me using an LLM can be as good as me. Do you see what I'm saying? I've still got value in that regard, and I will do for some time.
You also have a lot of content online, and like what I've seen happen is people will train the LLM to think like a particular person, right? So they could be like, I have this product or I have this problem that I'm trying to solve. Research it in a way that Dr. Nick Fine would do so. And then the LLM will try and mimic you. Whether it's right or not, and it does it accurately, is like, I don't know, whatever. But we are moving into a world where, you know, people are trying to kind of fake it. And like you mentioned something that truly terrifies me, and we've heard this quite a lot recently, is this term good enough. We're getting good enough UX, good enough UI, good enough research. Does that just mean we're just going to be living in a mediocre future?
Yes.
How do we stop that?
Quality. This is why I'm disliked, because I want to do good things. I want to build quality. I want to have a quality user experience, right? Or just not a shitty one. I want to believe that quality in some, I can't give you a time scale, but that quality becomes the new paradigm again. It's just that we've become so disposable and fast and fake it till you make it and all of this garbage that all we're seeing now is top-down committee rubbish. So quality of information, quality of product, quality of learning, quality of individual, all of that's gone. So I just want it back. I want some better filters. I want people hiring better than them. You know what I'm saying? Not worse. I want to work with people who challenge me in good ways, not that frustrate me and try to keep me down or gag me, silence me. And I want leadership teams that facilitate that and tell the young folks, that's bad behavior. That's not professional. You know, in the past few years, I've had people, one of the problems with things like Zoom these days is that it's all recorded, right? The AI stuff is doing it. Well, if you've got an unscrupulous younger person who doesn't really care about professionalism, they will literally go to somebody and say, look what he said at 1 minute and 3 seconds. And that's what's happening now. That's what's happening in the war of fake it till you make it. So people like me are being battered by kids who are playing very dirty pool. No one's stopping it. So either you got to bring this chasm, this world of difference between inexperience and inexperience. You have to bring them together. Have to. And I think everything that we do moving forwards has to be about getting experience shared, distributing experience. That's the most important thing. People aren't learning from experience. They're learning from social medias and people's best ideas, but they are untested, unproven ideas. So the unsexy, grey-haired experience has got some value here, believe it or not. I just got to find a way to get it into a format that people want to hear. You know, I don't know. I'm open-minded. I'll hear anything anybody has to say. I've broken it down on LinkedIn. I've screamed. I've shouted. I've begged. You know what I'm saying? I've speak at conferences. I put on podcasts. Until people realize that their gods have been wrong, have misled them, they need to let go of that. But people double down on their beliefs. They cherry pick their comfort. They live in echo chambers that support this. It's like they don't want to hear anything that doesn't match their worldview. It's like willing blinkers. And because it's the anxiety that it causes. Do you see? How do you get around that? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we need, if every corporation had better leadership that hired in people like me, people would learn. They'd have the confidence. They were learning the right thing. They wouldn't be living in fear. That anxiety wouldn't happen. The growth mindset is dead because of the anxiety that happens. So if you can get rid of the anxiety, we open minds up again, the growth mindset happens, and we can all grow, share knowledge, build the right thing, be happy. That's the way we want to go. But it can't be if people are fearful at home, living in echo chambers.
I love that. I love that. I mean, we've discussed so many points, and I think that is like a key point to kind of end on, is that a call to action, like for everybody that's listening, because it's extremely important, right? Like, if we got to decide what future do we want to live in, and then we all need to kind of collectively come together to make sure that happens, and just not let the laziness, I suppose, of the industry, of the corporations, of the leadership today to win. And I think this is kind of a brilliant note to kind of end on. If people want to see more of your work, your learnings, your insights, where's the best place for people to find you?
LinkedIn is my home for noise and dissemination. I speak at I get invited to a lot of conferences, but I don't accept them all. One of my favorite conferences I've been re-invited back to is Web Expo in Czechia in May. It's an incredible conference. I was there a couple of years ago. It's so well run. It's got amazing, really great speakers. I'm going to be dropping my user-centric product development deck, which I've been working on for years, and it's pure gold, absolute gold. This is a lot of what we've been talking about just on a page. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, do this. It's the blueprint for success. So come along to that, or just follow me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way, you know. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Awesome.
Well, look, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. It's been great. It's been really, really, we've covered some really interesting and spicy areas, which is great. Not easy to get the right platform to be able to speak truthfully or openly, honestly. So thank you very much for having me and letting me say my thing.
Well,
It's a pleasure, Nick.